Hello everyone, it's Tracy here from Temperance Tarot, and it is time for my May wrap up. I have quite a few decks that I have used in May to go through, so this might take a little while, but what I've spent most of today doing is working on my inventory with this app that is the LIBIB app. It's also a website. I don't know if that's LibIb or exactly what it is, but I now have a fairly accurate inventory of all my tarot and oracle decks. I have 107 oracle decks and 216 tarot decks, and that is unique decks because I do have some duplicates. So when I added the Rider-Waite-Smith in here, I'm gonna have to search for it. I've got too many decks. Original, here it is. This one, I scanned the first one, and it brings up, when I scanned it, it pulls in this picture and this description and everything. But under my options, I have the ability to say how many copies I have, and I actually have 7 copies of the yellow box Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And then I was also able to add some notes that I said that I've got 2 decks published by Samuel Weiser with no copyright, 1 US Games, no copyright, and like all purchased vintage secondhand except the most recent one. I will probably add more notes as I go along, but this was a project that took me the better part of the day, and I'm tired of looking at it, and I don't want to look at it anymore. But a shout out to Jennifer Ball for introducing me to this app, because I will now be able to keep track of all my tarot and oracle decks. And if they have barcodes or ISBN numbers, you can either scan them or enter the ISBN, and it will pull up information from, see, that's a self-published deck, so I had nothing about that one. But this one, it'll pull in the information about the deck and all that sort of stuff. So, really cool app. It was a lot of fun, but did kind of wear me out. So let's move on to the decks that I have used in May. And I'm going to start with the Nature Spirit Tarot. I've had this one for a while. This was, actually, I'm probably going to use this deck for the rest of the year for my weekly draw, because what I do with my Biddy Tarot Planner is I pull 1 card for the week and then set it out and look at it throughout the week. And because these cards are so huge, that works really well because I put it in a little card holder and they sit out on my desk for the week. This is an animal deck, but there are no mammals. It is all birds, insects, and reptiles, and fish. There are a few fish, like the devil. He's an absolutely marvelous fish. And this deck is wonderful just to look at. But where it really shines is with the book. And I would like to do a little bit of reading out of the book. You can see these are absolutely enormous cards. But I really don't have that much trouble just shuffling them kind of overhand like this. But that's, I actually think I can do a corner shuffle. Let's see. Yeah, I can corner shuffle them and then just push them together like that. So they're really not that hard to work with because the cardstock is really pretty perfect for this size of a deck. But let me show you what, oops, what I really love about this deck, which is the book. So let's pull a card. We have the Queen of Swords. Paper wasps. Paper wasps are found all over the world. This particular species, the common paper wasp, is found through Australia and is known to be highly beneficial. Its preferred diet consists of non-native insect species, which helps with the control of many invasive pests. So it talks about the symbolic meaning given to the wasp includes concentration and empowerment, and the skill to use those qualities with great agility. And then the plant in the card is common sage, also known as garden sage, and it talks about the sage and why it's in this card. And I love this deck and I love this book. So this is a self-published deck, but you can just get it directly from the author, Jean Marie Herzl. She has a website. There it is, naturespirittarot.com. It's not, if you're in the US, it's not a horribly expensive deck. I think it was about $40 for the whole kit, and I love, love, love it. And I do think I'm going to use it throughout the year as my card a week pull. Okay, the next deck I'm going to talk about is the Pearls of Wisdom Tarot. This is the gold edition, the 3rd edition that I got off of GameCrafter. I thought maybe by getting the more expensive edition, the cardstock would be better, but you know, it's not awful. It's just not, it's still not great. I had heard a lot about this deck years ago. I thought it was out of print, and when I found out it was on GameCrafter, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. And so I gave it a try, and I don't love this deck. I find it a little too busy, and you can see I've laid out several cards together here. And so if you were doing a reading, say a 3-card reading, yes, I could just use the titles and get meanings from this, but the images are so busy that my eye doesn't find a place to rest and a focal point on which to focus. This one is a little bit better because that moon, I do tend to, my eye is drawn towards that moon. But there's just so much on these cards that I can't, I have a hard time focusing. Even when I was just pulling one card was okay. I could deal with one card, but when I did it in a spread, it was just too much. It was too busy, and it just, I didn't connect with it. It just didn't give me anything. So, lovely as this deck is, and as much as I actually like the artwork on it, this is not a deck that I am going to continue using. It came with a little booklet that has 2 different sets of meanings for the cards. And now I didn't read every word of the booklet to figure out why. There was a set of meanings here and a set of meanings back here that were different. They're not the same. But it was nice to have both sets of meanings. And it also came with a little meditation guide, I think it was. I've stuck that someplace else. I'm not sure where it is. But it's a lovely deck. I got the big size. It comes in several different sizes. But it's just not a deck that I enjoyed using. So this deck is going to go in the trade sell pile. I pulled out the Golden Tarot this month by Cat Black, US Game Systems. I hadn't pulled it out in a while, and I saw, I don't remember who, I saw somebody else was using it, and I thought, I'm going to pull that one out and see how that one does for me. I do have the Touchstone Tarot by Cat Black, and I do tend to prefer it, but this is a great deck. It is a great little deck. The medieval artwork isn't my absolute favorite artwork, but this is so well done. The people's expressions are sometimes, I don't know, severe. But it's a great little working deck. And I don't know how some of them got upside down. It is, you know, edged in gold. It's gilded. And I like it. It's not my favorite deck, but it's definitely one that's going to stay in my collection. The next deck that I worked with this month was one I got in a trade. It is what I affectionately call the Bitty BOGO. It's the mini Bohemian Gothic by Baba Studios. This is not a deck I ever really considered purchasing, but when somebody offered it up in a trade for something that, you know, I wasn't using anyway, I said, sure, I'll give it a try. And it is a lovely little deck, very Rider-Waite-Smith, but I'm a Rider-Waite-Smith girl, so that's exactly what I love. It almost made me want to get it in full size, but I decided not to spend that money. I'd spend that money somewhere else. It's very dark. I love that bit of pink in the sky, though. Isn't that so fabulous, that Ten of Swords? But because it's teeny, It is a little harder to see the images, but it is also just easy to work with and easy to shuffle, and boy, you can set out a lot of cards with this deck and get a big spread going in a small space. And it shuffles really well. Of course, it's Baba Studios. It's gorgeous. You know we love our Baba decks. So I enjoyed working with this deck, and I will probably pull it out again, probably around Halloween, just because that seems to be the thing to do. And the lovely lady who traded it with me sent this cute little bag with it, and then I added a little ribbon to tie it up. It's okay if you want to go ahead and bot me about this, but yes, I picked up a copy of the Ethereal Visions Tarot deck by Matt Hughes. I was at my local witchy shop. She had a copy. She never has new stuff. And I got to look at it in person. I'm afraid I really like this deck. The people are very expressive. That's my card I pulled today. I mean, you can see the gilding on that card is exquisite. But the thing I think I love about it the most is the people and how the cards look together. You know, when you've got them in a spread, they're just easy to read together. There's enough information without having too much clutter on the cards. The soft pastel colors isn't something that is generally what I go for, but I'm really loving this color palette. Naturally, that gold all over the cards is just lovely. And yeah, I think it's mostly, though, the people's facial expressions. I can really get a feel for what's going on in their head because I can read it on their face. And I like that a lot. Again, it's another very Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Aren't they a sweet couple? It was one of the court cards that I really fell in love with. Let's see if I can find him. The Emperor was great. I thought he had a very commanding air to him and really embodied the ruler aspect of the Emperor very well. Oh, here he is, the King of Cups. That expression on his face, just, it's authoritative yet kind and caring at the same time, and yeah, I just love it. And I absolutely fell in love with this Nine of Swords. I mean, that's the skeleton with the crown of swords on his head. It's like you're giving your power to the nightmares that you're having, or to the anxiety or worry. So I found this a very readable deck. It's a bit thick, it's a bit big. I can just barely riffle shuffle it, and as I've said, I have large hands. And the cardstock is very sturdy, so it doesn't bend very much, but you can see I've already bowed it a little bit from riffle shuffling it. I just love it. I'm sorry. I worked with The Terror of the Sevenfold Mystery by Robert Place. I also got this one in a trade and finally picked it up and used it. I love Robert Place's artwork. I really do. I felt the deck was a little cold. And again, I think it's the expressions on faces. His people seem a little empty. And while, yes, I can still read with the deck, and I'm not going to get rid of this deck. I I have not yet purchased his new book because I don't want to spend the money on it until I know I'm actually going to spend the time to read it. And I've got so many other things on my reading pile right now already. But eventually I will get his new book, and I want to have this deck handy when I read that book because I love his books. So while I didn't really connect with this deck, I am not going to get rid of it, and we will give it another try once I have his big book. I also gave the Zillich Tarot a go this month and was quite surprised at how much I like this little deck. The little white book that comes in here, comes with this deck, is fabulous, and I'm going to shuffle and read because it is really, really good. I am not generally a Thoth girl, and this is a Thoth-based deck, but it's not the Thoth deck, so I think I have a little bit of an easier time with it. It's beautiful size and shuffles marvelously, has great cardstock. Backs are beautiful, but the little white book really is something special. So let's see, here we have the Knight of Wands, and he's just gorgeous. He's on his horse is moving. There are these things down here that look sort of like flames. He's got flame-like drapery hanging off of his head. He's got a torch in his hand, and we're moving and we're getting places. And since this is a Thoth deck, the Knight is kind of equivalent to the King, but I just don't treat them the same way. I mean, he's still in motion. He's not sitting still on a throne the way a king would be. So he's a knight. And let's look him up. All right. He's Fire of Fire. A fiery explosive force propels the knight on his horse. Like Prometheus, he holds a bright shining torch. He stands for magnanimity. He stands for magnanimity. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this word. Magnanimity, activity, and impulsiveness. When he loses control over himself, he turns into a cruel fanatic, bringing forth calamity like the opened Pandora's box. So that's just a fabulous description. Let's have one more. And there's the Sun. Oh boy, we're full of fire today, aren't we? The Sun is the regent of the seasons. A child, the symbol of life, holds a red flag whose colors indicate the blood of renewal. So here's our figure, which is kind of hard to find, and the red flag, which I think is kind of orange. Each year, everything in nature opens up anew to the sunlight. The esoteric emblem of this image is the face turning towards the light. As the fire of the world, the sun represents all-encompassing consciousness. It is light, life, and love. 3 sun phases are symbolized by a closed lotus, a half-open lotus, and an open lotus. Closed, half open, open. At the time of the winter solstice, there is deepest night. At the spring and autumn equinox, day and night are of the same duration. The sun shines for the longest time at the summer solstice. In a reading, the Sun card is entirely positive in its significance. It indicates self-knowledge and liberating insights. The sunlight makes gold in the earth grow. Okay. And as such, the sun is also a symbol for wealth. Gold stands for healing and wisdom. Only when lying next to unfavorable signs does the sun indicate exaggerated openness or shamelessness. This is a definite keeper. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's got enough detail without being too busy. It does have the esoteric keywords on the bottom that are associated with the Thoth system. And it does have the Thoth system court cards. But it is just beautiful, and I'm so glad that I got this one. It's just lovely. So definitely a keeper here. I also used the Stretch Tarot. I believe this is the second edition of the Stretch Tarot. I used the Stretch Tarot this month. And this is another really fabulous little Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It does have keywords. The keywords aren't exactly what I would have put as the keywords for the cards, and they're not huge, which means I sometimes don't even notice them. So I figure that when I see them, when I notice them, I should take that keyword into account when I'm doing my reading. If I don't notice it, then I don't notice it. And it doesn't play in the reading that I'm doing. The images are quite evocative. My air conditioner coming on again. It's summer in the South. So just a beautiful, beautiful deck, and such nice cardstock, and so inexpensive considering it was an indie deck and I had to have it shipped from England. I like this one a lot. Everybody sees the backs. And the shuffleability is just very nice. It's just a very, very nice deck. So the Stretch Tarot is another keeper. I've only got so far, yeah, I've got 2 more decks to talk about, and I am only putting one of all of those tarot decks in the to-go pile, and that's Pearls of Wisdom. And that's pretty amazing. I pulled out an oldie but a goodie, the Aquarian Tarot. I hate the new edition of this deck because of the backs. The backs have a white border on them and it just looks hideous, and plus they're just, I don't know, they're a little too shiny and they're just not my favorite. This deck, I believe, is a 90s edition. 1993, and it was the second printing from 1993. So yeah, this was an early 90s edition, maybe early to mid 90s. And you can see it doesn't have the border on the backs, but the fronts are just normal, and of course it does have the copyright. And it's not too glossy, but the thing I love about this deck is the cardstock is so good. It has a weight to it that is just delicious to hold in your hands and marvelous to shuffle. And even though this isn't one of my favorite decks, this is a deck I won't get rid of. It's Rider-Waite-Smith. Everybody's seen this deck. I really don't need to show it. The faces are kind of a little weird, but it reads very well. It reads very, very well, and I do love to touch it. It feels very good. So another keeper, the Aquarian Tarot. And now finally, the last tarot deck that I worked with in the month of May. I did work with a lot of tarot decks. I did an Instagram challenge in addition to my normal pulls that I always do, so that just upped my deck count a little bit, particularly with tarot. And I'm probably going to do another Instagram challenge in June, even though it's already the 2nd and I haven't started one. I will probably start one tonight. I really like this deck. It is not strictly Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's not really Thoth either. It's kind of like if they had a baby. It's a hybrid. It's got some esoteric stuff in it, I believe, but since the little white book is pretty awful, it's very sparse. It's in a bunch of different languages and doesn't really talk about these cards. It's just tarot in general. I just went with it intuitively, and I was able to get so much from spending a few minutes looking at the picture. Because like, here's the 7 of Swords, and normally we have somebody stealing something in the Rider-Waite. But what I saw here when I looked at this and when I pulled it for a daily draw, I saw it as a failure to communicate. These people are actively not listening to each other and actively not paying attention to what the other person wants or needs. So I loved it. This one, don't you love that one? They seem to be happy about this swarm of wasps that are coming down to saw them in half. But I understand from watching Brian Cormac Carr's videos that this deck is slated for a reprint by the artist with a better book. and I will be interested to see that, because from what I understand from his videos, if I remember correctly, and if it actually came from his videos or if I learned it somewhere else, I don't recall, so I'm sorry. She's not happy with the little white book, and she's not happy with the purple borders either, which, yeah, they're kind of obnoxious, but I've gotten to where stuff like that just doesn't bother me so much anymore. But I really like this deck. This is a keeper, and if it gets republished, I'll probably get the new version to see how it's different. And if she publishes an English version of the book, absolutely. Because this is Hans Arnold is credited on the box, but in the actual deck, Hans Arnold was the artist, but Rose Bjorkman, who is the alias of Yolanda, was the person who was the conceptual person. She came up with the ideas. So there we go. Okay, now we're moving on to the Oracle decks that I used this month. And the Oracle decks were not nearly as successful in my liking them as the Tarot decks were. Like I said, the Tarot decks, I've only got one that's going in the to-go pile. I think all but one of the Oracle decks are going in the to-go pile. And this is actually the one that I'm keeping. The Answer is Simple by Sonia Choquette. This is very easy. And there are times when I just need easy. I need you to give me a straightforward answer that I can understand at face value and not have to meditate on or think about or sleep on. I just want you to give me a nice little clear message that gives me some direction. And this is absolutely that deck. The artwork is simple and easy to understand, and the keyword that goes with it makes absolute perfect sense with the picture. I love this one. Take no offense. So if someone accidentally sprays you with their tire, they didn't do it on purpose. You know, don't get mad at them. Clean up your mess. And it's not all just happy, happy, joy, joy. It's, well, yeah, you made a mess, you got to clean it up. It's just really practical, common sense, everyday types of advice. And I really, really liked it. It's perfect for where I am right now. Other times it might be too simple, but for where I am right now, it is just exactly what I needed, and I really like it. Even though the backs are rather obnoxious. So be patient, wait your turn. I love it. I love it. And now we're into the duds. I so wanted to love this deck because the artwork is so beautiful. But there are a couple things. First of all, I felt, and this is just, obviously all of this is just me in my opinion, and this is very hard to actually articulate, but this deck, it was like turned into magnets in the opposite directions where they actually push against each other rather than magnetize towards each other. I very much felt like I was not supposed to be using this deck. That this is something that really just, no, was not for me. Even as much as I love the artwork. So I used it for several days and just, I kind of cringed whenever I went to touch it. So I said, you know, if I'm feeling that way about it, I probably shouldn't be using it. So I put it away. And actually, some decks I would go back to and say, I'll put it away for now and then I'll come back to it later. But this one needs to have another home. This one needs to belong to somebody else, somebody who's the other side of the magnet, where you'll work together really well. And it was written in another language originally, so it is all in English, but it was translated, and the translation is pretty bad. Which, if I had an affinity for the deck, I could certainly get past, because you can understand what they're saying. It's just not well translated. The incorrect words are used, or you can see that the grammar is bad and the punctuation is not quite right. And again, if that had been the only issue, but this deck is not for me, and it is going. It needs I have an overwhelming feeling that this deck needs to find a home with someone else. So if you're that someone else, reach out. So I didn't have a Tony Carmine Salerno deck. I thought I'd give one a try. It's beautiful. Oh, his artwork is lovely. But I'm having the same issue with this deck that I have with so many Oracle decks. I don't see how the image relates to the keyword. And I need for my image and my keyword to have some sort of connection. I mean, here we have healing, a beautiful image, a beautiful keyword message, but they really don't have anything to do with one another. It's just a beautiful painting. And there are a lot of trees. And sure, I love a tree as much as the next person, but I'm not a super tree person. It just didn't do it for me. It's lovely. I mean, it's nice. Let's have Ingenuity. Let's look at that one. They're in alphabetical order. Ingenuity. Nonviolence is the weapon of the strong. Betty Williams. Commit yourself to lofty ideals and rise even higher. Before you succumb to the familiar, the trusted, and the same old patterns, look for a better way. Keep looking, keep tweaking, keep yearning. There is another way, and you can find it. You are forever on the verge of an epiphany. Persist. Divinatory meaning. A situation requires a novel solution. Compromised values make invention a necessity. A temptation to take the easier road. Acknowledge a mistake or risk repeating it. A problem solved. Affirmation. I am equipped to tackle any problem with elegance and poise. I use my resources in surprising, efficient, and effective ways. My most trusted tools are resilience, compassion, love, and peace. My values are firm. My vision is true. There is genius in all I do. So you can see the message in the book pretty much relates, the first part of it in particular, to the keyword. But this ingenuity, the only ingenuity I see here is that this tree is blue instead of green. So this deck is going in the bye-bye pile. I have enough decks that I like that I'm not going to keep the ones that don't resonate with me. The next Oracle deck is the Mystic Art Medicine Oracle cards. I talked about these when I got them, that I was really excited to use them, and the artwork is still just as beautiful on the front. The backs are still just as horrible. The cardstock is still just as bad, but none of that would matter so much if the book was what I wanted. It's just kind of, and I don't know a real way to say it, it's just kind of all over the place. The messages, she obviously painted these paintings first and then created an oracle deck from them, and there's really nothing wrong with that, except it just didn't quite work for me. And I do love these paintings, and I might find another way to use the artwork. Or even the cards. They're so thin I could actually glue them or tape them into my journal or something like that and come up with some way to use it. Maybe as a journal prompting or some writing exercise where I take the keywords off and I just look at the images and I write about them. Something like that. But let's have a look. Ebb and Flow. Earth Mother of the Oceans, which I believe is probably the name of the painting that she gave it when she finished it. And then she says, Earth Mother of the Oceans holds the waters in her womb. A mermaid of the ancients follows the ebbs and tides with the moon. And then every time she gives herself credit for having written this, because she has a little poem, so to speak, with each card, and every single time she gives herself credit for writing the little poem. Then we have a description of the card. Earth Mother of the Oceans wears a Celtic stag as her crown, supporting the medicine in this painting as a foundation. I'll say some of the sentences here, I have a whole lot of trouble with their structure, so let me try that again. Earth, mother of the oceans, wears the Celtic stag as her crown, supporting the medicine in this painting as a foundation in the earth as well as the oceans. She will help you as you dive the depths of your oceans of emotions to remain conscious and grounded. Her ability to move into other levels of consciousness is brought through the stag to help you shift the gears of any difficult situation. She balances the scales of mind and affairs of the heart. Her essence is compassion within the masculine and feminine. She is the goddess of the Mother Ocean, associated with the moon, always there for you as you flow within the tide's rise and fall. And there's more. But to me, that sounded like wah 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 wah. And that's just me. You know, somebody else that might have made perfect sense too. But I just don't get it. And so I'm not going to use this deck. So if anybody is interested in it before I cut it up and use it for something else, just let me know. Or I might just destroy it by dropping it on the floor. And the last Oracle deck I used this month was the Clairvoyant Reading cards. I thought this might be another deck where the images and the messages lined up and made sense. And it does a better job than some of the other decks that I used. But at the same time, some of the information in the book, some of it was really good. There are some of these cards that I really connected with the image and the message in the book, and I thought it was fabulous. There was there's a card about spirit guides or something like angels and spirit guides that just resonated with me very strongly. And then there are other cards in this deck that just fall completely on their face. I believe there's one for Ascended Masters. Let me see if I can find that one. Probably on the bottom. I think it was this one, Meeting Angels. That had a really great message to that card. This one, Ascended Masters, was, I mean, and this one also, chakra balancing, were like you tripped and fell on your face. Opportunity was very good. So let's look up Ascended Masters and let me tell you what I'm meaning. The Ascended Masters are such wonderful beings with an intense energy of peacefulness and light. They have very high vibrations, so even just thinking about one of them will lift your mood. Drawing this card means that at least one of the Ascended Masters is making a connection with you now. Could it be that you need the nurturing touch and passionate feeling of empowerment that Kuan Yin can bring? Perhaps Lord Sananda, which is Jesus, I don't know why she couldn't just say Jesus, is here to help you have more faith in yourself. Or the great Saint Germain is here to help you trust your wisdom. The Ascended Masters and their amazing blessings are too numerous to detail here, so do your research and learn a little more about who they are. Well, that's where I have a problem. I have never studied Ascended Masters. I have no idea who the Ascended Masters are. I don't want an Oracle deck to tell me to go do hours worth of research to figure out which Ascended Master is trying to talk to me right now. If you can't give me more information, enough information to give me a valid message for this card, then don't include the card in the deck at all. Or have you, this deck isn't huge. We could have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, one for each of these specific Ascended Masters, and she could have given us a little bit more information about that. So some cards really good, some cards really bad. I think I might read through this book again and just take out the cards that I thought just fell flat and use the ones that I liked a lot, because some of them I really did. I liked a whole lot. So there we go. That's a lot of decks to use in 1 month. I wasn't quite as chatty about each deck as I normally would be because I am just exhausted today, but I wanted to try to get this done today. Otherwise, it would probably be next weekend before I'd get to it. And then by that time, I might not, I might just not even do it at all. So anyway, I hope you are all having a wonderful, wonderful day. And thank you so much for putting up with me to this point. And much love, and I will see you later. Bye.